Hi, I'm Jake Brown, and I am a business coach consultant for entrepreneurs and middle managers with ADHD. And I know that this podcast is usually structured like slick conversations with Dr. James, but today we're talking about ADHD and we're going to chase some rabbits.
Success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about living a life that reflects your values and priorities. Welcome to Engineer Your Success, the podcast that helps you lead with intention and live fulfilled.
Let me ask you a question. What if you had a coach in your corner every week, helping you focus on what matters most, become a more effective communicator, and to lead well? That's the ideal behind Engineer Your Success Insiders, my private podcast for leaders who want practical tools, not just theory. Every week, in just 3 to 5 minutes, you'll get one story, one insight, and one action that you can use right away. The goal is to prepare you for those critical moments that matter at work and at home. If you're ready to take the next leap in your leadership, click the link in the show notes and join Engineer Your Success Insiders today. This is Dr. James Bryant, your coach in your corner. I'm really excited to have you back on the show. You were here in episode 36, and I don't know, I think the thing that I took most from our interaction is that in the middle of our interview that time, it's like it dawned on you that, hey, I like to have fun. Like, I'm going to admit to myself that I like doing these things because it's fun.
As we were talking, you did that magic thing where it's just like, we're having a conversation and everything disappears. That is the way that I do it. And when I'm not having fun, I don't show up as well. Like, I show up as a lesser product because I'm trying to be something else. I'm trying to play by somebody else's rules.
Everybody listening, Jake's been giving me his Heisman Trophy pose, Derrick Henry kind of stiff arm away. But finally, he agreed to come hang out with us. So what changed?
Honestly, the topic we had been talking about was my journey with ADHD and how that has kind of shaken out how I've come to understand it and help other people with it. And to be honest, I really had to process through it a whole bunch and get to the point where I had talked myself, like when we talked before on the previous podcast episode, where it's like I had to talk myself clear. I had to have several times where I processed and thought through things. And what I realized was I was able to have conversations with people who were neurodivergent. We were able to talk about our experience with ADHD or autism, whatever. Like we could almost have a different language and we could talk about it. But anytime I talked about it with people that were neurotypical or in front of neurotypical, including my wife, it's like, yeah, no. It was just this like, no. And I was really self-conscious about this. And I've started opening up to other people because I've kind of found words that make sense on both ends. Because you grow up with HD, you grow up in school, and the teacher's like, you sit in the back and don't distract the other kids. And your main thing is like, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to stand out. I want to be the dumb kid. Like, I don't want to put myself in that situation. And it's like, if I talk about it now before it's ready, then I felt judged that way. And then I talk to like good people that are like, no, that's not how it works. I also had to do a lot of work on the communication of it, where it's like, how can I explain my view of it in a way that other people understand who have never processed or thought the way that I think? So yeah, that's what's happened is I've gone enough reps to where people, okay, now we understand it. I'm like, all right, now I'm ready to risk and put that out there and help myself, help other people just on both ends.
So you were helping other neurodivergent individuals having these conversations. And then you started noticing that, hey, there's a nice niche here where I'm able to help people. Let's talk about that.
So I actually went back and the first thing, as I understood about myself and hid it, because for most of my career, I was hiding it. You and I have talked about this before. I can't cite the study, but we go into work. Like most people who have ADHD, you go into work and 20% of your stress capacity is not getting fired and not getting caught. So that means you only have 80% of your capacity left to actually do your job. And when I learned that, I was like, "Man, that was really taxing." And then as I went out and I'm working with my clients and figuring this out for myself and kind of found a rhythm and what really worked for me and the tools and the things that I'm using, one day I just kinda looked up and realized that the clients I had worked with in the past, the staff that I had gelled with the most through the years, and then my current clients, 90% of my current clients right now are dealing with ADHD. And I was like, the people that fit best and that I serve the best have ADHD. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe I just call it what it is. And what happens is the more I just go, like, if I step up on stage and start with, "Hi, I'm Jake, I have ADHD, and this is going to be wild." Like, people clap, people lean into it. The network and the niche, the audience, the community has surrounded me, and it's actually easier to get subscribers. Like, there's more and more people with me as opposed to I thought they were against me. If I stopped facing them in fear, then we were together. Is kinda how it ended up
Yeah.
being.
Yeah. I want you to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Alright. So, let's see. Hi, I'm Jake Brown, and I am a business coach consultant for entrepreneurs and middle managers with ADHD. And I know that this podcast is usually structured like slick conversations with Dr. James, but today we're talking about ADHD and we're going to chase some rabbits.
All right, let's chase some rabbits. I love that. So, what's the first rabbit that you want to chase? You talked about, because before this point, we've talked about your general journey, but you've talked about this journey. What gave you the courage to get over that fear? And I would call it fear or hesitation to be able to live authentically as Jake Brown, a person with ADHD?
Well, that's a great question. And it's hard for me to think because it's this tapestry of moments that are in there. Not to be a suck up, but there was a moment where we were on a group call, just a social call that we hop on Zoom call, people we've known for like 5, 6 years. And there was this moment where I remember you telling me, you said, there's somebody who needs you to talk. Like or you said, there's somebody who needs you to share. And I remember thinking, no, like I actually was angry that, it was kind of like, no, 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 like you're trying to rip off my shield. This is not going to happen. And
I remember that. I do remember that.
that was a moment where I was like, I know that you're always right. So I need to consider this, but I wasn't there yet. But then there were just several moments as I've gone through and, working with my kids and their wiring now and working with more adults that have that late diagnosis where they're in their 30s, 40s, and they get diagnosed. And it's just like now stuff makes sense, like all the stuff up to this point. But the conversation I was having with everybody was one that I didn't like. It felt kind of dirty. It felt kind of icky. When you're a kid, most people who figure out when they're a kid, they figure out it's their fault. That's how the kid receives it a lot of times. When you're an adult, you figure, oh, well, that's what's been broken this whole time. And I didn't like that conversation. That's what's been broken this whole time. And I was really thinking through that, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it when I felt that way. I tried to use different terms. I heard some people say it's called a disability and then a superpower. I didn't like superpower because, it's not like we're Superman and other people are less. So I didn't like that idea. And then the wiring, I was kind of back and forth on that. I actually went to see an exhibit. I went to this exhibit. It was a painting at a museum, and it was the water lilies by Monet. I don't like them. Like, I look at them and I just, nah. Like, I went to art school. They've never struck anything with me. And I went and looked at them. I thought, I don't like these. They're messy. The colors are bright. They're chunky. They're huge. These things are massive. They were just overwhelming for me. The stimulus it was overwhelming. And then there's a bunch of them, similar but different. And they're just categorized as the water lilies because somebody outside named them the water lilies because they looked alike to this other person. So it's this collection of water lilies. And I remember staying there looking at them and going, I appreciate that they changed the art world. I get that. Just don't like those paintings. And I looked at them and I said, I remember thinking, the only reason these are valuable is because Monet made them. I'm like, they're valuable because they were made the way he wanted to. Like, he was intentional and he made them. And then a little bit later, I just had this flashback moment, and I was like, wait a minute, we're ADHD. We just didn't fit what was expected. And somebody just lumped us together and categorized us and said, we're going to slap this label on them. But I mean, I'm a person of faith. And I thought, but I was designed this way. Like, I'm valuable because I believe God made me. Like, that's where my value is. And I'm like, if that's who I am and God made me this way, I'm not like the cast off, that nobody found, like they found in a dumpster out back of the studio. Cool. Maybe they want to call me a water lily because I'm bright and loud and large and a little bit messy. Fair enough. I get
Yeah.
that. But then I was like, okay, so I've started using the phrase design feature. Like, I think of ADHD as a design feature, and it doesn't make sense to everyone. It may not be common everywhere, and everybody's is a little bit different, like we're all wired. But when I started looking at, I mean, I could chase this forever. I watched this documentary about animals and how there's a small percentage that are hypersensitive. It's like when you watch like a bunch of gazelles and there's like a lion, like a lioness starts coming, and like one gazelle pops up and its ears are, the other
Yeah.
gazelles don't notice it, but that one did. And because that one was sensitive, the whole population is saved. And I was thinking, I don't know that that's what ADHD is for us.
Well,
But at the same time, I'm
what
like, that's a design feature.
but what I would add is that because of that, the population can be saved. The ones shared
Man,
their twitch, their movement, everybody else looked and chose to follow. They were waiting for someone to step up with that design feature of sensitivity to be able to say, hey, it's time to go.
I see what you did there. Yeah, and I don't know that all of that lines up or makes sense to most people. But for me, you asked what was my journey of understanding. Those
Yes.
were big moments where you basically said, stop being blind, love other people more. And I was like, yeah, that's what this is for. And then thinking through those paintings and that experience, and then watching that documentary, watching those animals and going, you know, if we're all in this together, I need to share. I need to open up. And as I was doing that, I was having more and more conversations, and more people with ADHD were showing up. I started doodling on LinkedIn, and that blew up. And people are
Yes,
like,
it did.
yeah, when I don't doodle now, people start DMing me and they're like, hey, what happened to your doodles? And I'm like, sorry, guys, shouldn't you be working? It's 2 p.m., but whatever.
They love your doodles. That's just a practice you use to help you think through things or process things, correct?
When my mind is winding up real fast, or when task switching is really hard, I can actually split tasks. If I doodle or something like that, it calms my mind. All the stimuli and thoughts running through my head kind of just like pause when I doodle for a couple minutes. And then just kind of like whatever the next thing that I grab, my mind can kind of hyper focus on. So a lot of times for me, there's this task that'll take 15 minutes, but I've spent 3 hours delaying doing the 15-minute thing.
Yeah.
This is a very common thing for me. If I can pause everything else, put on headphones, doodle for a little bit, I can spend 2 minutes doodling and then get that task done in no time. I've also been able to crush projects. There was one day I had a 10-hour. I was like, this project's going to take me 10 hours, and I'm going to do as much of it today as I can, and then we'll overflow and see where we go. I doodled for a little bit and then got into the project and crushed it. And then I went out and I was like, oh man, sorry guys, I forgot about lunch. I asked if we needed to get anything ready for dinner. And my family just started laughing at me because it was 11 a.m. I seriously thought I had worked all day. It was 11 a.m. and I was like, well, I completely lost track of time. And I had finished 10 hours of work in like 2 hours.
So how did you come across this technique? Was this something that you did as a kid, or where did this come from?
Yeah, the doodling started when I was really little. I was having my first anxiety attack. I was completely overwhelmed. My grandpa got down on the floor with me and he said, I reckon it's a good day to draw. And he put butcher paper out on this coffee table and we just sat there and he started teaching me some of the basics of simple drawing. That's where it started through the years. Anytime I was overwhelmed, he would do that. When I got into college, having my first kid, getting married, whenever these big moments and things would start to overwhelm me, I just felt the heavy weight and I would call and talk to my grandpa. He would always say, I reckon today's a good day to draw. It just became one of the anthems between us. But I also found that drawing was a safe place. It was kind of therapy. And I almost abused it at one point when I was doing art as my career. I didn't have a safe place to go because all of my drawing was being judged. Like it was being graded by somebody else. I asked my grandpa about it and he was like, are you drawing or working? We actually changed the terminology to doodling at that point. And it was like, the whole point of doodling is that nobody's judging it. You're making something that nobody is judging. Because if somebody's judging it, just it changes how we approach and we're going to be more fearful where we can't relax fully. So yeah, over the years, done now, a bunch of nerdy research, got hyper focused and like went down all the like the psychology and everything. I've even like doodled with my brain hooked up to like monitors, like, the monitors, so they can watch what happens. And it is just really fascinating to watch it. Just like all the colors are crazy and it just always,
Down.
yeah,
That is awesome, man. So there's a few times in this conversation that you've mentioned not wanting to be judged. And there are lots of folks listening that may be dealing with that same issue of I don't want to do X, Y, and Z because my family's going to judge me or other people are going to judge me. What are some tips or pieces of advice that you have for those folks?
yeah. There is something called RSD. And if you have ADHD, there's a good chance that you deal with RSD, and it's called rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
Okay.
And what it actually means is we all have a sensitivity to rejection. With ADHD, we seek acceptance and we expect rejection all the time. Rejection really hurts because it's not just oh, that circle's too high. That is a personal attack. Like we actually view that as part of our identity. And then the dysphoria part comes in when we start reacting, expecting rejection, and then we like pre-reject. We start changing who we are because we expect people to reject us,
Yeah.
and that's kinda where that dysphoria kicks in.
Or you don't do something because you say it's going to be rejected, or I'm not going to communicate this because they're not going to appreciate it anyway.
For sure, like, how often have you looked at a hobby or a sport or something that you think, "Man, that looks interesting," but you're not willing to do the 13 fails that it takes to be any good? If we start cutting ourselves off at age 4, kids start reacting differently because they know all of their outputs are judged.
Mm,
Everything that they do is being graded, judged, a value is being assigned to everything that they do, and they start changing the way that they develop and grow at that point. That's a survival mechanism. People yell at me when I shouldn't do that, don't hurt
yeah.
people. Like, that's good, but at the same time, we develop that and we never undo that child like that what was necessary as a child. The first thing I recommend is find some kind of hobby thing that nobody's going to judge you and practice. And that's where the doodling comes in. The idea is that you put ink on a page, it's a doodle. Like it doesn't matter. You just put it on the page. Try not to make a bunch of decisions. And then the next step is you fold it in half, you wad it up, and you throw it away.
So two things just popped into my brain as you're talking. You're doing the work, right? You're doodling, whatever you want. You're doodling. It's having fun, but you also want to get comfortable with not associating judgment with your work. You have value inherently because of who you are. We talked about God designed you as who you are in this way. So that's where your value comes from. It's not necessarily that your work is not valuable, but you're training yourself to say, okay, here's a product that I'm producing. I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and it's okay.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. The way I present it when I explain to people is if you say psychologically, all things are either judged or unjudged. Like we expect, like we're going to make something and we expect some kind of response to what we do. Neurologically, everything's either an input or an output. And as we develop in our lives, most of our life is spent doing judged output. That's work. Most relationships have some kind of judged output to them. What we do to escape is we go to unjudged input. So when I was looking at that, I thought, what about unjudged output? Kids are really good at this. It's called play. They get together and do something. Like you never see kids that are playing and then they sit down and they go, what, if you had taken this angle right here and maybe if we lighten our load and we're not carrying so much, like they don't do that. They just play.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And it's not judged. It's just burning energy. They're creating something. They're doing something. And as soon as it's dinner time, it's dinner time. Like, play's over. It's never even thought of again unless they go, that was fun. Let's do it again. Like, that's the most judgment that comes out of that. And I thought, kids are a lot happier.
Yeah, they
Why
are.
don't why don't we just try and do that? And, that's kind of how I've been teaching is like, if you're overwhelmed, it's usually because there are expectations with tasks. Your to-do list has a bunch of expectations on it. But if you can remove the task list from the weight of the expectations,
Hmm.
it's a lot easier to just knock out the stuff that's on the list. And that's where, for me, to-do lists become very heavy. But if I can doodle and kind of shelter, there's all this stuff that's hitting me, trying to get my attention. And if I can just shelter for a little bit and hide inside the doodle, my brain kind of lets go of all the stuff that's fighting for my attention that I have to remember, all that I have to do. It's on a list. It'll still be on the list when I come back to it. But the doodling kind of dissolves those connections. It shelters me and all those connections are gone. And then I come back to the list and I can just start hammering stuff out.
When you were thinking about this episode or coming back on for us to have this talk, what's one thing that you wanted to make sure you communicated to the audience?
Yeah. If there's one thing I could communicate, it's that if you are dealing with ADHD or someone that in your family or someone that you work with is dealing with ADHD, like changing the mindset from it's not something that's broken, it's just an expectation was missed. But there's a design feature. And if you think of it as a design feature, then it's like that's the operating system. That's how they work. Let's work with it. Are there ways we can either use it or adjust for it? For instance, if you're in a big open workspace, you could just put on, like, I have noise canceling headphones. I also have like ear protection, like from the gun range that like drowns out all noise. And sometimes I have to put that on just so that like the birds chirping aren't driving me crazy. If there's one thing, it's that it's not broke. It's just designed differently. Figuring out what works for you, because there is a system at play. You just have to find your rhythms. It's just not the one that everybody else expected.
Okay. It's a design feature, not a design failure.
Yes.
I want to make sure that folks listening can really understand that it is a feature, not a failure. You are okay.
I'm letting that moment hold. That was deep. That was rich. And I was letting it land.
So, Jake, what's the best way for people to get in contact?
Yeah. The best way right now, I'm on LinkedIn, but my website is jakebrown.co. That's the fastest way to find me.
So that's great. So, Jake, I really appreciate having this conversation. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
Ah, man, I think it's just ADHD can be a lot of fun. You're not broken. Other people aren't broken. Once you realize it's how you were made, now discovering it. How do we use it? How do we have fun with it? There are so many other rich things that come with ADHD. Like the way that we do relationships, there's a thing called pebbling. The way we do relationships are ping, 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 ping. Random things happen. I might see a pizza box that reminds me of my college roommate, and I'll send him a text because I thought of him. And it's like, that's weird. And people love it because people love being remembered for whatever reason. And you find those little things that are weird, or the fact that I hate windshield wipers, like the noise and the inconsistent, and it's never the right rhythm. Like
Yeah.
it's either too low or too fast. And like there are all these little nuanced things. You can laugh about them and you can turn around and use those for noticing things, like being more aware for others. We tend to have a different level of empathy that others don't have when we're using it. Some people will call it a superpower. I say just figure out how you operate and be there for others.
Yeah. And I think part of that is we all know intuitively that it's a good practice to accept people for who they are, where they are, to meet them where they are. But many times we don't apply that to ourselves. We're not willing to accept ourselves for who we are, where we are. And the acceptance in this case doesn't mean that you're not looking to improve or leverage what you do, but it's more, this is who I am. This is how I'm wired. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah. And that was hard for me, figuring out how do I accept this about myself. And that's the idea where I was told, well, this is what was broken. And I'm like, well, that makes all of the pain make sense. That makes all of the friction make sense. So I guess I just keep hiding it. And
No,
now I
but
know why. That's when I
yeah,
first got diagnosed. It's like, well, I guess I keep hiding it and I try to figure this out. What I've since found is your decision is a personal decision of who you share with and how you explain this. There are some work situations where you might not want that, a boss to know or whatever. But especially like loved ones and people that are close to you, nobody else can accept you until you accept yourself and share.
no, that is true because you're not going to fully share who you are until you accept who you are. You can't, because there are always going to be pieces of you that you are hiding. I just want to circle back to something that I said. You can accept yourself for who you are and you can continue to improve. That improvement is not coming from a place of failure, like something was wrong. If you look at the best athletes, what do? They practice and they train to get better. They're already good, but they're practicing and training to get better. What are they training to do? They're training to take advantage of their gifts. They're training to take advantage of their talents. They're training to take advantage of how they're wired and who they are. And I think part of our conversation is helping people understand you can begin to leverage tools like doodling or understanding the approaches to how you actually show up. And you can leverage that to create the life that you want, to create the relationships that you want. Okay. So again, Jake, it's been a pleasure having a conversation with you, man. I really appreciate it because I know how we both are. We could sit here on this platform and talk for another couple of hours, especially since this is a low tide day for you. And you're just like, oh, this is great. Let's just hang out.
I'm not responsible for anything for
Yeah.
3 hours. Let's do it.
No, but I appreciate you coming back on the show. It's really been great. And I'm going to end this podcast like I ended the last podcast, which was episode 36. And that is this. Many people know what to do. Fewer people know how to do it. And there is a select few that are actually doing it. They're able to accept themselves for who they are and show up fully for the world to help just make it a better place. Jake, I want to thank you for being part of that select few.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
Leadership comes with high expectations, too many responsibilities, too little time, and the constant pressure to keep up. If you're feeling stretched thin, you're not alone. At Engineer Your Success, we help leaders take back control so that they can lead with confidence, delegate effectively, and stop running on empty. You don't have to choose between success and sanity. Let's build a leadership plan that works for you. Visit engineeryoursuccessnow.com today because thriving isn't just for others, it's for you.